You want answers?
I think I'm entitled.
You want answers?
I want the truth!
You can't handle the truth.
Time! Tell us about yourself. Who are you?
Tell me!
It is a gift. A privilege.
Behold. My stuff.
Now you want to get nuts? Come on! Let's get nuts.
I like it.
I know, it's great, right?
Another.
Greetings and salutations. Welcome to the Meaning of Fandom. This is a show where we gather people together and they share with us what a particular character or fandom means something to them and why it's so special, if you will. I am your host, Ryan of And I Quote Channel, and our guests on this episode are first-timers to the studio, first-timers to the channel, first-timers to the network. Goodness gracious, this is going to be one for the books, ladies and gentlemen, and I mean that figuratively and literally. Am I saying those words right? Probably not. Well, please welcome the host of Film at 11, also known as the host of the Whitfield Report, 11 a.m. Eastern Time, Pacific Time, whatever it is. Sam Whitfield is in the building, ladies and gentlemen. Hello, Sam. How are you?
I'm well, sir. How are you?
Oh, we're fine. We're all fine here. No, thank you. How are you? Anyway, there's a reference there for you if you're pop culture junkies. Also joining us here in the studio tonight, I should say, is a gentleman who likes to keep his identity behind a curtain, as well as a pair of 1980s themed shades. Please welcome best-selling author Henry Brown is in the building tonight. Hello, Henry. How are you?
The house, in effect. I'm good. Yeah. It's a Friday, so things are looking up.
Absolutely. I would wholeheartedly agree with you, Mr. Brown. Now, for those of you who are joining us live or on the replay, thank you for doing that. Do not forget to like and share this with all of your closest friends. If you have any questions or thoughts or comments you want to make about any of the fandoms that we are discussing or some other things that we may be discussing in the realm of pop culture, let us know in the comments. Let us know in the chat. We're more than happy to take those as they come in. The Dutch Star Wars guy says, "Hey, Ryan, great thumbnail." Yes. I want to take this opportunity to say thank you to our good friend Case, also known as the Dutch Star Wars guy on YouTube, for creating our new thumbnails for all the shows we're going to have upcoming here from March into the future. So thank you again, Case. Love you, brother. Thank you so much. Those thumbnails are dynamite, as one might say. So with that out of the way, here's how the show is going to work. We're going to turn things over to one panelist at a time. They're going to share with us a particular character or maybe a fandom or something they really enjoy about pop culture and what it means to them and why. And then we're going to share our 2 cents on the matter if we're familiar with that particular property. And then, hey, looking forward to hearing from you who may be watching or listening to this right now. So ask questions, make lots of comments, because we're more than happy to take those as they come in respectively. Before I'm going to turn things over to our first panelist. But before I do, we have this to share with you. Take a look at this.
The James Bond 007 collection.
Name's Bond. James Bond.
3 gift sets on special edition DVD. Presented in widescreen with digitally enhanced picture and sound.
A feast for my eyes.
Cutting-edge menus launch you beyond the action.
I've had a few optional extras installed.
With deleted scenes, original documentaries, exclusive featurettes, audio commentaries, music videos, screen tests, trailers, photo galleries, and so much more.
Can I do something for you, Mr. Bond?
Just a drink.
Sophisticated.
Martini.
Shaken, not stirred.
Vodka? Of course.
Dangerous.
What a helpful chap. Do you expect me to talk? No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die.
It's Bond, armed with all the extras.
My name is Pussy Galore.
I must be dreaming.
No, I'm 007.
Experience it today. The James Bond 007 collection on special edition DVD. All 20 films are here in 3 explosive gift sets.
Well done, James. The pleasure, I'm sure, was all mine.
Start your collection today.
Boy, that takes us back to a lot of years now, doesn't it? A lot of history. 6 actors, 25 films, 60 plus years of history. And that's not even counting the books that these films are based on by Ian Fleming. So just out of curiosity, Sam, Why is it that you are OCD slash a big fan of someone known as Jimmy Bond, also known as Agent 007 James Bond, for those of you keeping score at home?
Well, my relationship with Bond as a character has really evolved over the years. When I was a kid, like about 6 or 7, I remember playing the 007 GoldenEye for the N64 with my friends, and so that was my first foray into gaming. And then once I got a bit older, it was also my first foray into reading the Bond novels, which kind of motivated me to start writing stories of my own when I was in junior high and high school. So Bond to me is kind of my foray into many different areas. That was everything from film critique and whatnot, which is a passion of mine, to writing my own book series that's kind of loosely based off of James Bond, but also based off of some of Vince Flynn's work. So, not to mention my sense of style and, my love of beautiful women, of course, too. So, just a whole bunch of aspects that I could name off about why I love 007. So,
Ah,
yeah.
I gotcha. No, that's cool, man. That's really good. Just out of curiosity, as a follow up question here, favorite Bond actor, who did it best? Who's the top dog?
That question, I always get asked that question, and it's evolved a little bit as I've gotten older. I've always loved Pierce Brosnan since he was my first Bond, but as I've gotten older,
Hmm.
even though I'm a grown man, I love to say that, when I grow up, I'd love to be as cool as Sean Connery. So, I think Connery, at the end of the day, is still the ultimate Bond. Um, I think each Bond though brings something new to the table, right? Their own interpretation. And but yeah, I think Sean, he's timeless and he is James Bond for a reason.
Hmm.
So,
All right, understandable, understandable. Favorite, what am I trying to say here? Favorite Bond film?
favorite Bond film, probably. Ooh, if I can only pick one, I think From Russia with Love, just
Mm,
because I think it's, peak Bond, kind of the Cold War era. I think it's probably like the most traditional Bond as far as like a spy in a Cold War thriller. But just so many too. I think Tomorrow Never Dies is very underrated. Um, I know that a lot of people hated that film when it came out, and I've always loved it. But I think now, kind of in this era of the internet and fake news, I think Tomorrow Never Dies has actually gone from being like one of the most absurd Bond films to being like, hey, this could actually happen with evil, news tycoons and whatnot. So, um, yeah, so it's kind of a toss between From Russia with Love and Tomorrow Never Dies. So,
wow. All right. Two different eras. I dig it. Yeah, for sure. Good
yeah.
picks, man. Good picks. No qualms about that. Favorite Bond girl?
Ooh, that one is also tough. I would probably have to say, Ursula Andress is timeless. Um, but I also think Natalia from GoldenEye is extremely underrated. So yeah, I'm gonna go with Natalia. So,
Wow. Favorite Bond theme song?
um, the opening theme from On Her Majesty's Secret Service. That is just you know iconic. Uh, On Her Majesty's, I think, is overlooked as a film, as a whole. So, But yeah, that's probably my favorite Bond theme.
Wow, we're getting some really unique picks here, I got to tell you. But I completely dig it. I mean, like many of us, we both, whether you grew up with the Connery films or not. I mean, I was introduced to Bond. My dad loved Goldfinger, so that was his favorite Bond film, right? Because it's Connery,
Yeah.
it's the beginning, it's the height of the franchise. A lot. I think even Leonard Maltin has or Siskel and Ebert have gone on record by saying Goldfinger is the best Bond film ever made. So, which hey, there's not too much of an argument there. But I will say, I didn't really know what it was at the time because I'm a little kid. I didn't know any better. Then a couple years later, my dad took me to the theater and we saw Goldeneye in theaters. And my mind was, blown on the floor. I was like, oh my gosh, one of the best things since sliced bread. If this is what action movies are, give me more of this. So from then on, I've been a Bond fan for, what is it, like 30 years now, which is insane because Goldeneye turns 30 later this year, which is crazy to think about, by the way. And the other thing is, Jake Hendricks is here. Jake says, best Bond girl has to be Solitaire from Live and Let Die. Dun, dun, dun. Anyway, we can't play that song because it's copyright, but still, correct me if I'm wrong. Solitaire, oh gosh, what's her name?
Jane
Jane
Seymour.
Seymour, that's right, yeah. Which is crazy to me because she looks nothing like Jane Seymour that I know of from Wedding Crashers and some of the other films that she's been in over the years. Solitaire looks nothing like Jane Seymour, but if that was in fact her, at what age was she in that movie, Sam? Was she only like 22, 25 years old when she got the role of that?
I think maybe 20, not even I
She was
don't even
20?
know.
Oh
I
man,
think
she was
so,
young.
yeah.
Woo! That's going that's going way back, son. But yeah, no, when I found that out, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is the same woman who was in Wedding Crashers, which is a very raunchy comedy, to be in a Bond girl in the first Bond film starring Roger Moore at the time, which was Live and Let Die. And I think it was 70, was it 72? 72, 73?
It's somewhere in the early 70s, I think.
I think it may have been 72. Or I think it was 72, but I might be wrong. Jake Hendricks says it was one of her first major film roles. Wow. That is mind blown. Mind blown. See, that's the other good thing about it. See, this is one of the interesting things about Bond films. They take these young actors who no one's ever heard of, and almost overnight, because of being in a James Bond film, they become a household name, right? So congratulations to Jane Seymour, because she's done, like hundreds and hundreds of movies since then. And obviously she did Dr. Quinn, Medicine Woman, right? The TV series for many years. So, I mean, Jane Seymour, and by the way, Jane Seymour was on Smallville, for Pete's sake, my favorite TV series of all time.
Who did she play on Smallville?
She was Genevieve Teague. She was gosh, what was his name? Jason Teague's mother.
Oh yeah.
Jensen Ackles' mother. She was Jensen Ackles' mother. Yeah. So the fact that she's been in all these different properties since Live and Let Die, that's amazing. Congratulations to Jane Seymour. She's still, I believe, as far as I know, she's still alive. She hasn't passed on yet. So well done, Jane Seymour. Well done. But yeah, no, I've been a Bond fan for 30 years. I mean, I played the video game like crazy on N64 at my friend's house. I had to rush over there just so I could play GoldenEye every single day of the week. Twice on Sunday, as a matter of fact.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of us did it. So it was fun. So yeah, I've been familiar with Bond for a long time. Henry, what is your familiarity with the Bond franchise? And if you have any favorites regarding the character, feel free to share, Henry.
Oh yeah, I could probably go on about this. I was exposed to the movies. Well, I have an older brother who's a big fan of all the Bond movies. And so whenever they would come on TV, I would see them. I always thought, of course, I love the gadgets. I love the Wild Wild West. So and the music was always, got me pumped up and stuff. And I got an appreciation for the movies first. And then later on, I went and read the books. And I would say definitely of the themes, Goldfinger has, in my opinion, the best theme of all of them. And followed maybe closely by Live and Let Die and The Spy Who Loved Me. I thought Timothy Dalton played a pretty good Bond. His films weren't as exciting, but I think he was closer to the character than most of them have been. But the quintessential Bond role, in my opinion, was Connery in Dr. No.
Yeah.
And I think Dr. No was one of the most faithful adaptations of the book. And even though it doesn't have as many gadgets as I like, not all of the fun stuff the later ones had, I think that one might be my favorite. And Connery just nailed that role in that movie.
Yeah. I actually just finished listening to the audiobook version of Dr. No, and I found out that when the book was written in the mid 50s, Jamaica was still a former British. It
A
was
British
still a British.
protectorate.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
still part of the British territory. And then when the movie came out, I guess Jamaica had just gotten its independence, and I think that was like in 60. I think that was in 60. The film came out in 62, but I believe when they were filming it was like 61,
Mhm.
maybe even 60. So, yeah.
I had
Okay.
no idea. Had no idea. That's fascinating stuff. Fun facts. This is the beauty of these shows. You never know what you're going to learn. Honestly,
Yeah.
great stuff. I had no idea, but yeah, no, I've seen all the Connery films. I mean, for me, this has been my experience with it, just in general. I've seen all the Connerys. I saw Lazenby's. I saw the Timothy Daltons. Seen the Bronsons. See the Craigs. I've only seen one Roger Moore movie because for me, Live and Let Die was enough. I didn't need to see any more. It's like, okay, we know where this is going. It's not my cup of tea particularly. But hey, I mean, I'm sad to say this, but he's the longest running Bond in the history of filmmaking because he's done 7 movies. Whereas I think Connery did 6, not counting the out of canon one, Never Say Never
The
Again.
remake of Thunderball.
Yeah, the remake of that, that's not canon. So that really doesn't count. But
Right.
of the canon films, Roger Moore's done the most. And I'm like, man, Moore's holding the record? Man, it should have been Dalton or Brosnan or even Craig for that matter. But that's just my opinion because I come from a different generation than they did. That's all.
Yeah. Well, technically, I mean, this is an interesting discussion too. Is who is the longest? Is I guess depending on if you look at like length of time
Right.
versus number of movies,
Well,
the answer can change because if we're going off length of time, it's Daniel Craig. He's had the
15 years, yeah.
he's had the longest role. But as far as like number of movies, it's Roger Moore. The other interesting thing that I've find with Roger Moore, I think he I think in like a number of interviews before he died, Roger Moore actually said that like there were times where he wanted to adapt the book more faithfully as like an actor, but because it was the mid 70s and the studios had their own ideas, they weren't fully able to. Like Moonraker as a book is actually like very grounded.
Yeah. It's nothing like the movie.
Yeah, it's nothing like the movie, but because I think Star Wars had just come out around the time of
77.
Moonraker.
Moonraker was at 79, yeah.
Yeah, the studios were like, well, we got to cash in on this, on this Star Wars hype. So that's why they, took Bond into outer space. But supposedly that's not something that Roger Moore wanted to, do initially. So.
Well, that's an interesting tidbit I wouldn't have thought of because Roger Moore was such a clown as Bond. And he's the first Bond I knew, so I don't hold that against him like some others. But I mean, do you know anything about the background there? Did he ever like fight with the director to try to get more straight lines? Or and don't get me wrong, I love his puns.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if he. I mean, at one point you would have thought that he would have been able to since he had been in the role, but I guess at that point, studios were just kind of like, hey, you're the actor, you're here to act, and we're the directors. It's not like now or even in the 80s where even in like the mid 80s where actors had more input. I remember Dalton said he would only do the role of Bond if he could play it closely to the books. And so that's why he was kind of ahead of his time, was we got the very kind of dark and brooding Bond. So but yeah.
Daniel Craig, I think his after Casino Royale, I don't care for any of the movies that he's been in, but in Casino Royale, I thought he did pretty well, and that one was fairly faithful too, if what I remember about the book is correct.
Yeah, It's interesting. It's interesting, Henry, because my co-host on the Wednesday Whitfield Report said the exact same thing that he didn't care much for Craig after Casino Royale, and I liked Skyfall, but I feel like that one has kind of also been um it's it's one of those films where like I liked it, but it's kind of gone downhill for me because
Mm,
kind of everyone likes it, and I mean, yeah, Craig's tenure I feel like is the most rocky because some of the films
right.
are his films in that series are either really good or they're really bad. And with No Time to Die, obviously that's the most controversial, one
Or
in his
divisive.
tenure. So
Yeah.
I'm not sure I've even seen that one.
It's a
Casino
3-hour
Royale.
movie.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Sam, but Casino Royale, if I remember right, the book did not make excuses for Bond's love interests the way the movie did. I forget her name, the actress's name or the character's name.
yeah,
But
for
she
Vesper,
betrayed him, and in the movie, they kind of tried to make it look like she had no choice, or they tried to make her more
yeah,
Yeah.
sympathetic afterwards.
Yeah, it was Vesper
yeah,
Lynd, played by Eva Green, who's one of the most
Vesper.
well-known actresses in the world today. So,
Oh, well,
but I mean,
shame on me.
I'm just saying. I mean, she's been around for a long time, man. She's done so many movies by this point. I mean, there's not too many men, women, or children who don't know the words Eva Green in the same sentence. And not only that, she's one of the most beautiful women that ever walked the face of the earth.
I can
Anyway,
see her face, yeah.
yeah.
But
So it's like,
excuse
yeah.
me, Ryan. I'll go climb back under my rock.
no. I'm just giving you some fun facts from Hollywood back here, Hollywood.com, hashtag not real. But I'm just making this up as I go. But no, it's funny. Skyfall was such a, you're some of the first people who've ever mentioned that Skyfall has kind of gone downhill in terms of quality or just not like as good as some of the others. Because to me, Skyfall's a really good movie. I mean, the way it's shot is beautiful. And the other thing is, but the thing I can understand, it's more of an M movie than a
Yeah,
Bond movie. It's more so about her and her background and the
Yeah.
controversy that she stirred up when she was running agents, because she was like controlling or like the director of undercover agents. Hence the reason Silva comes after her to begin with and tries to kill her off. Well, he ends up accomplishing that, even though it was, accidental shooting, but still.
and he's actually probably
Yeah.
my favorite villain as
Oh,
far as
Silva is? Okay.
yeah. I mean, I think
He is good.
I think Javier Bardem is really I think he's really good as just like playing a maniacal yet smart Bond villain. And I mean, I do like I do like Skyfall. Don't get me wrong. I guess what I don't like is some people's reaction to it. That oh my god, it's the best Bond film ever, and it's
Mm.
if you're gonna see one Bond film, that's the only one you need to see. And it's like, I wouldn't say that. And I don't think James Bond is necessarily like a franchise where you can only see one movie and get the entire picture either. So
Well, personally, Skyfall doesn't even feel like a Bond movie to me. Like Ryan
no,
was saying, it's more about him and her movie, but
yeah,
Bond's name is attached to it, so people would go see it.
yeah, I totally agree with that. So
I mean, it's a capable cast. Judi Dench knocks it out of the park every time. She's been doing
She
it for
is
30.
good. Yeah.
She's been doing it for 30 years as M. I mean, she was the M to two different Bonds, and she did a great job in both iterations. I mean, she was really good with Pierce, but she was even better with Daniel Craig. So it just because someone brought it up in a review, they say they have like a mother-son relationship between M and Daniel Craig's iteration of
Kind
Bond,
of.
which I think is it makes sense. It makes sense, especially with Skyfall being the most personal that they ever got with either M as a character or Bond as a character. They got real personal with that. So
yeah,
it's good. To me, it's one of the best. Do I think it's the be all end all? No, it's not. But it's definitely one of the better Bond films that I've seen, at least in my tenure as a Bond fan. I
yeah,
mean, it would be in my top 5 for sure. As far as just Bond, not just overall like that, but in the James Bond franchise, if I'm going to rank all 25 of these bad boys, Skyfall is definitely going to be in the top 5, if not
yeah.
top 6. I mean, it's there. It's definitely there. So, but then again,
I
that's just me.
I do remember like one of the most disappointing things about Craig's era too is Like, I remember being really excited when they cast, hearing the news that they were going to cast Christoph Waltz as Blofeld, because Christoph Waltz, I'm a huge Quentin Tarantino fan too, and Christoph Waltz, uh, I think is an amazing actor, and his ability to play these really, I mean, he played the Nazi in Inglorious Bastards, and it gives you a chill down your spine. So when they initially said that they were going to cast him as Blofeld, I was like, my initial thought was, oh snap, we're back. We're going to get like Donald Pleasance era, Blofeld, very creepy. Like it could be better than Savalas. And then they really made his Blofeld like, almost a footnote, in the series. And really I was like, okay, this is the writing team's fault, because there's no way that you can, get like I mean, Christoph Waltz should be scary as like a villain, and yet he just wasn't. He was very underwhelming. So
Yeah, I'm with you on that, because now that I'm familiar with the Connery films and how they used the character throughout different iterations of the franchise, yeah, Spectre was a letdown in so many different ways. I mean, they hyped that thing up so hard, and Sam Mendes came back because of his success on Skyfall. So I thought we were going to get a really solid Bond film after that. Just
yeah,
didn't work. But the other thing was, and I feel that the studios do this all the time, and they need to stop doing it, or at least in this instance they did. You fast tracked it and you rushed it. You rushed it. It was very, very fast, quick turnaround from Skyfall, at least in my opinion. So they should have taken their time, written out the story better, given us more details, gotten either Sam to direct it a different way, or just give him more time, give everybody in the studio more time, because they felt like they really rushed this thing. Because I think in some instances during the film you can tell that it was rushed,
yeah,
and it feels convoluted too. Like I can't even, like, some of the stuff that goes on in that movie, I don't even understand it, especially with the reveal of who Blofeld was and how he was semi-related to James Bond, which I thought was really weird. Didn't make a whole lot of
yeah.
sense. It was like pulling, what do you call it? You're tugging at, a rope here, you're pulling at strings, and you're throwing stuff against the wall to see what sticks. For
Well,
me, it just didn't work. Like, in terms of most disappointing or least favorite Bond film, Spectre is most certainly on that list.
yeah, well, this is so one of the biggest problems I have with Craig's tenure,
Mm-hmm.
in general in hindsight is and I've talked about this on my podcast before too when I've had Bond discussions, is Craig's tenure is the only one that I can think of where like all the Bond movies relate to each other. And I don't necessarily think that that was a good idea necessarily. For Casino Royale and like Quantum of Solace, I could kind of understand that, but like, Bond's formula, the thing with those movies, the reason why they're fun is every single, adventure, for the most part, it's like, 007 comes in, from banging, hot chick number 7, and then it's always, a new adventure, right? And he's always going off to some, new location. Well, with Craig's tenure, everything um has to connect to Casino Royale basically. And we're led to believe at the end of like Quantum of Solace that yeah, he's finally resolved his issues you know from Vesper, and he's ready to move on and you know be the 007 that we know and love. Um, and that's the other weird thing too is so Casino Royale and Quantum is like his origin story, right? And then we get to Skyfall, and they're like, "Oh well, Bond is broken down, and he's getting old, and you know it may be time to like retire him and put him out to pasture." I remember like being in the theater being like, what? We just had an origin story for this Bond like 2 movies ago. Like, how are we supposed to believe that this guy is already, you know, old or, something like that? It's just very disconjointed, and maybe I'm a little OCD about that type of thing, but just like as a writer, it doesn't make much sense. So,
Mm. Yeah, it's some things work, some things don't. But yeah, having a MCU like cinematic universe with the 5 films starring Craig, yeah, was it a smart move? Probably not, but you know what they say, right? Beggars can't be choosers, and no risk, no reward. So sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. In this case, it's just for certain instances within Craig's tenure, it didn't work. But anyway, I mean, we could talk about James Bond all day long, but I do want to remind you
yeah.
that this is, in fact, the meaning of fandom with your friendly neighborhood host, Ryan of Anti Channel, joined by the esteemed James Bond experts known as Sam Whitfield and Henry Brown. Do not forget to like and share this episode with everyone you know. If you have any comments, thoughts, feelings about this or any of the other fandoms we're about to discuss here on this program, let us know in the comments, let us know in the chat. I'll be more than happy to take those as they come in and all that good stuff. So, yeah, Sam, in other words, James Bond, the franchise, we could talk about it all night, all day, twice on Sunday, but we can always save it for another episode. You never know.
Oh yeah.
Crazier things have happened, and I think minor spoilers for those of you wondering what is going on here. I may or may not be appearing on Sam's podcast somewhere down the line. So if and when that happens, we can talk about Jimmy Bond all night, son. We'll have a fucking martini, shaken, not stirred. Anyway,
Yeah.
with that being said, Henry, I'm just curious, what is a character or fandom that you really, really enjoy and why?
Okay, so my number one, I've got a lot, but my number one is the character's name is Clarence J. Mahoney. I want to say Mahoney, but it's only got one O, so I think it's Mahoney. And he's in a book called The Sergeant. Oop. Oh, perfect. Okay. Anyway, it was written by the series. There's 8 books in it. It was written by Lynn Levinson, originally writing under the pseudonym Gordon Davis. And it follows I guess you'd call him a kind of a street hoodlum from New York, but he joined the army so he'd get 3 squares a day, during the Depression, and he joins just in time to get his rank. He's busted up and down the ranks, but he's a master sergeant by the time. See there on the cover, you're showing he's just a staff sergeant. They got the chevron wrong, but he's a master sergeant just in time to be deployed to Europe before the Normandy invasion. And so the books take us through pretty much the rest of the war from prior to D-Day to the end of the war in Europe. And he's not an aspirational hero. He kind of blew me away when I was introduced to him in the first book of Levinson's that I read. He's again, he's a former hoodlum from Hell's Kitchen, so he's Irish American, and he's a hard-nosed, hard case kind of I guess you'd call him an anti-hero. And Levinson, the way he wrote him and the way he wrote his action scenes was like I had read nothing like it before, and more than anyone else, I owe my love of pulpy men's adventure fiction to Levinson and this character. Because at first I thought, and some people who read him, they're going to find him a despicable character, especially some of the things he does. But you still can't stop reading him, or at least I couldn't. He's such a strong, well-developed character, and he's got such a personality. You got to follow him. And over the years, I still have this. I have all the books. I have all the books in the series, and some of them I have more than one. And over the years, I've noticed it. I've become more and more like the sergeant myself, especially during my active duty. His attitude, I guess, it's fatalistic and it's brutal. His actions can be brutal, and yet sometimes he can be surprising in his, what would you call it, compassion for certain people. Which is there's another book that was written by someone named, or I thought it was written by someone named John Mackey. But it turns out this was also Lynn Levinson. It's another World War II series called The Rat Bastards. And it's more of an ensemble cast in that one. And it's a longer series. I guess it's more popular. But the style of the writing is, I mean, I wondered right from the beginning. I was like, is everybody that writes about World War II write this way? What else can I say about him? He's almost amoral. He does have kind of a code that he sticks to, but it's well beyond what most people would tolerate as moral. But he's also, his code name is the Parrot because he picks up languages so easily. So he's fluent in not just English, but French and German as well. In the first 3 books, you meet him. He's kind of like, on the very first book, he's on a commando mission. Then with the 4th book, The Liberation of Paris, he's a regular dog face. He wants to get out of, he was a, he was a ranger who was assigned special duty with the French underground in the first book. And then he was on some commando missions in the 2nd and 3rd. And then by the 4th book, he's a normal dog face. He wanted to quit the Rangers because they keep giving him these dangerous assignments. And he does have a strong survival sense. So he just wants to be a regular guy in a regular line infantry unit. And little do we know, in fact, this one, Liberation of Paris, he was supposed to get cushy duty. He was assigned with Corporal Cranepool, his sidekick. He was assigned to be a liaison with the French as they were allowed, Patton was pulled back and sent somewhere else. And the Americans let the French go in and liberate their own capital. And he was just supposed to be a liaison in that. But wouldn't you know, because he is the sergeant, he and Cranepool get stuck in the middle of this tank battle, right? Literally right in the middle in an old deuce and a half. They get stuck in the middle of this tank battle between the Germans and the French. And of course, it goes south from there. This series is kind of supercharged with sex. There are some porno scenes in it, and I mean like hardcore porno. At least to me, they seem like that. So for those who would be offended by that, you could either skip past them or avoid the series altogether. But that's one of the things that in most of the books, you're going to have some kind of sex scenes. So he finds some French widow or I mean, situations are contrived. So he gets in these situations, but and sometimes outright prostitutes. And some of those scenes are despicable, and even I don't like reading them. But my favorite out of the whole series is this one, Bloody Bastogne. Of course, it's the Battle of Bastogne, which if you know nothing about it, it happened during the Battle of the Bulge. And the 101st Airborne is called off of, after Operation Market Garden, they're kind of in the rear with the gear, chilling out, getting some rest and recuperation. But the Germans launched a surprise offensive that Hitler's been preparing for a long time, and they need the 82nd and the 101st to go plug gaps in the line, and they need to hold Bastogne because it's a key road junction on the way to Antwerp, which is the objective of one of the German armies. And when I read about this, I got really curious, and I went and I researched historical nonfiction about the Battle of Bastogne, and that's what made me want to be a paratrooper. And so, sure enough, I wound up doing that later on when I was old enough to enlist. And it's a fantastic story. The way he blows up this fuel dump on the way, I thought was just ingenious. And but he hooks up with the prostitute early in the book, and he winds up falling in love with her. She's one of those unicorns, those whore with the heart of gold, I guess you'd say. But he writes it so that she's got a hard luck story. She, the war came along and turned her life upside down, and this is the only way she could, put food on the table. And then he anyway, in the very last book, which is Hammerhead, he gets a platoon leader. He's been the platoon sergeant. He's been running things on his own, and he gets, unfortunately, kind of a stereotypical officer put in place to lead his platoon. And the two of them are at odds from the very beginning, bumping heads. And eventually he has to put that second lieutenant or first lieutenant, I forget. He has to put him in his place in spectacular action fashion. So I've rambled on here, y'all, and I don't know if I've gone over my time limitation, but hopefully I've covered the basics of why the books about this guy are so appealing to me. Levinson likes to write in every book, pretty much every book, he's got at least one scene where you have bayonet combat. And I mean, very chaotic, brutal, just blood-soaked bayonet combat. And here's something I didn't tell you is way back when I was on Facebook, I actually I saw the author Levinson starting an account, and I asked him. I forget how it happened. I might have asked him a question or something. But anyway, long story short, we became kind of internet pen pals for a while. We were in touch with each other, and I had the chance to interview him on my blog. And it turns out he was not a World War II veteran. He was almost a Korean veteran, but the war ended before he, got sent over there. However, he did spend a lot of time. His NCOs were, World War II veterans, and so he picked up some of the stories from then, and I think he picked up the attitude from them. And according to what he told me in our interview, the character was mostly based on a friend he had in New York who had been a World War II veteran, if I'm remembering right. But anyway, so he's kind of a pastiche, but he's based on real guys. And turns out, like I said, I'm definitely not completely like Mahoney, but I'm more like him than I was when I started reading the series. And I met some guys who are quite a lot like him.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Goodness gracious. All right. I'm not familiar with this character, not familiar with this property or this book series, but I appreciate you sharing with us what it is, who the character is, where he comes from, and a number of the books that are part of this series. So thank you for sharing that with us, Henry. Sam, any familiarity with this one?
I've heard the name Len Levinson. I don't know if this is the same gentleman I'm thinking of, but I believe he wrote as many pulp authors of his era did.
Yes, he definitely did.
I believe that he had some short stories published in Playboy magazine, maybe, but I could be wrong on that.
That sounds like something he would have done in his younger days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of pulp authors got their start in the fiction section there, actually. Did he write any other series? Because I know I've heard of the one that you've
he
mentioned.
did. He wrote a couple Western series, and he was kind enough to send me one for free. I have not read it yet. My to be read pile is, gargantuan. So it's on there, but he wrote a couple Western series. He did write some hard-boiled PI stuff. He wrote and most of these are in ebook now, so they're available, but he wrote a kind of espionage, kind of crime novel, a standalone that's loosely associated with the JFK assassination. And he did write some spy series. So he was kind of a jack of all trades. He was your typical mid-list author. And somebody who runs a website called, I don't want to say it and get it wrong, but this guy, and I don't know if he's still doing this, but he just read and reviewed a lot of paperbacks that he found at used bookstores, I guess, which is what I do as well. He called Levinson a trash genius. And Levinson was actually very proud of that. He quoted that many times. He was never quite so impressed as with my reviews of his books, even though I think I was a lot more kind to him. But he really liked that. He liked being called a trash genius.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think, I mean, for my money, I definitely think that there's something to be said for. I mean, people think that just because you write trash, that you can't be a good writer. But I think there is an art to it, and I've always said, like, even with my books, my books aren't going to appeal to everyone, but to the audience that does, like pulpy stuff, you know, you you're definitely going to like, you know, there's something for everyone, and I think this whole thing of, books trying to appeal to everyone is just really kind of silly because you're never going to appeal to everyone. It's impossible. So,
Yeah, it goes back to the old saying, you can't please everyone, right?
yeah.
Right.
That's what it goes back to, gentlemen. You just can't. I mean, this is the first time I'm hearing of this character in this property, so I never heard of this one iota.
I
Name on it.
wonder.
I guess it's kind of esoteric. Yeah.
I mean,
And that's a shame.
yeah, I mean, it's above my pay grade, but at the same time, like, that's why I love doing these types of shows, because you get to learn this stuff. Or
I kind of
discover
want
it.
to. I
didn't
kind of
know.
want to read them now. If
Yeah,
I'm being
see,
honest.
like, you got us curious. So, like, Sam wants to read it. I'm curious about it to an extent. So, who knows? I mean, that's the beauty of these shows. And we appreciate those of you who are watching or listening to this right now. Don't forget to like and share this with all of your closest friends. If you have any thoughts about this, let us know in the comments of the chat. And if you're joining us live on the replay, thank you so much for doing so. But yeah, Len Levinson and the Sergeant character, interesting. By the way, being called a trash genius, that's, I mean, when I hear those words, Henry, I'm thinking of filmmakers like Michael Bay or, Uwe Boll, maybe. I don't know, but Uwe Boll is like a really bad filmmaker, but that's not the best example. But Michael Bay has made a lot of bad stuff, but it's so bad that it's good. You know what I mean? So
Sometimes, yeah.
it's one of those things where, a trash genius. I've never heard that mentioned in the same sentence.
Well, he was my window
Weird
into men's adventure fiction,
which is great.
and I might not have ever, gotten an appreciation for it if it was not for him.
Oh.
Oh, and by the way, I mentioned the Rat Bastards.
Oh, there it is.
If anybody wants to get introduced to Levinson's writing, this series is actually, they're all out in audiobook. So you can find them on Audible. I'm not sure if there's any other platforms that have them, but they are on Audible. And oh my gosh, they found the perfect narrator. What is his name? I can't think of it right now, but the narrator's great. The characterization, the voice characterizations he does are just, some of them I wouldn't have thought of myself. They weren't the way I heard the voice in my head when I read the books, but they're just, he brings a comedic effect to it that I think really complements Levinson's style. So again, if you want to, if you're like me and you're really strapped for time quite often, then the audiobooks would be a good way to get into Levinson's prose style.
I'm actually looking it up right now, and wow, Ray Porter.
Ray Porter, that's the guy. Yeah.
Yeah. So for the folks who don't know, that's the guy who does the Terminalist, all of the Jack Carr audiobooks, and
Okay.
also the if you're into audiobooks like I am, because that's basically how I consume books now.
You got away from the whole paper and stuff on a page, huh?
Ray Porter is well, I mean, for me, I like audiobooks because, like,
It's okay.
I have a visual tracking issue, so it somewhat helps me follow along with some of the stuff. But yeah, Ray Porter is awesome, and it looks like Len Levinson's books are included with Audible too. So.
There you go.
Are there other ones beside the Rat Bastard series in Audible?
It's looking like
that's a lot, by the way. Good option.
Yeah. It's looking like it's looking like there's I mean, they've got everything from it's
Mhm.
looking like it's mostly the rap the the series you mentioned, but yeah, I think they have one of his PI novels
Okay.
on here too. So
It's really a shame. I don't think he's ever made much money at it. He was able to make a living at writing for a while, so kudos to him for that. But uh, he did this stuff to pay the bills, and he has come out with some novels recently where I think he's going for a more literary, a more serious author
is
approach.
is he still alive?
I wonder about that because suddenly his communication with me fell off, and he hasn't responded to my last couple emails. So I'm wondering that might actually be the case now.
Huh.
Yeah, because I know that I know that like a lot of those, a lot of those pulp writers, like even going back to the 60s now, they're, and 70s, they're getting up there in
Yeah,
age, some of them.
yeah, he was
So,
Silent Generation, and there's not too many of them left.
Yeah.
oh yeah, no, if he's silent generation, I mean that means he's got to be like in his late 80s, early,
Yeah.
possibly even early 90s. So,
Well,
which
that's another saying. Time catches up with everyone.
oh yeah.
You
Something
know?
I should say too
Yeah.
about him because I something I might have said something I said might have besmirched his character, which is not my intention, but he did say by the time that I met him, he did say quite often that he regretted the vulgarity that he put in a lot of his early work, his the stuff that he did to pay the bills, and I know part of that was because of his he he found religion later on. He was uh, and I don't know in detail what his beliefs are, but he thought he was making it more realistic by including the vulgarity, the porn scenes that I talked about and stuff. And um, if he could go back and do it over again, he would not have written those. So I assume that his latest work, which I have yet to read, does not have any of that. But his human interactions with and by long before the social sexual hierarchy SSH became a thing, and of course now people all over have discovered it all of a sudden. But I was one of the earlier people to discover it, and Levinson kind of instinctively recognized something like that in his time, long before before Vox Day had written about the SSH. So his observations of people and the way he captured them and put them in the personality of some of his characters was actually it's exemplary, I think.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I'm not. You mentioned Vox Day, and I mean, I have issues with some stuff that like
Oh,
he's
for sure.
written. I think he and I have actually kind of brushed up before, and we're not really fans of each other
Yeah. No, I
to put it
can definitely
lightly.
see that happening.
But I mean, I definitely think like for sure, yeah. I mean, I think one of the things with like Levinson and going back to Bond, kind of with Ian Fleming and also the gentleman who wrote the Mac Bullen series. I mean, that whole entire generation, they, it's easy to kind of, look back at their writing now with a critical and say, well, maybe it's bad that they wrote, it this way. But that whole entire generation had a completely different outlook on life and also all that they'd been through in, World War II and in Korea. So,
Yeah.
again, it's hard to look back at, at that, at their work, it's really easy to critique and say, oh, well, here's where they were wrong. But,
Hmm.
looking at things in their proper context is always, good for the time that it was written in.
Hmm.
So,
No, yeah, and we've said this before in Hollywood and outside of Hollywood, things are a product of their time. So
oh, yeah.
these were written during a certain period of time where things were different. The belief systems were different. People thought a different way, 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 way back then. Long before Sam, Henry, and I were even born. So things were different. Things were different. So gotta take that with what is known as a grain of salt, as
And
one might
speaking for
say.
myself, there's stuff in my past when I was young and dumb and I
Oh yeah.
did some things that I'm now ashamed of.
Oh, I see
And
what you mean.
thank God I didn't put them in print. I didn't,
Right.
Yeah.
put them in a scene in a book.
Right.
But so I think we all have that, and we all do dumb stuff when we're young.
Oh yeah.
Oh
And
yeah.
Yeah,
so-
we all do it. We're all good. Every person on this earth has made mistakes, done things they regret, looking back on it now. And that's okay. We're all human. We make mistakes. We do things we probably shouldn't have done earlier in our lives or careers. So you pick up and you learn from it, really. I mean, that's
Yeah.
that's
And
the thing I've gotten from it.
even since I've been published,
Mhm.
my worldview has changed a little bit. It's adjusted a
okay.
little bit. And so
Yeah.
there's stuff like in my debut novel, if people, asked me to defend what's in it, I would not be able to defend it the way I could have,
Mhm.
would have shortly after I wrote it.
Oh, well.
So, and it might be subtle, some people might not catch it at all. I didn't, but anyway, so you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah. Hindsight is 20/20, ladies and gentlemen. So, keep that in mind as we roll along, right? That's what we get. But no, this has been educational, to say the least, on this episode of the Meaning of Fandom. But this has been very good, very educational. A lot of fun facts being dropped here on this episode. We want to take this opportunity to thank our guests for being with us, and thank you who may be watching or listening to this for being a part of this episode. Sam, if someone wants to know more about you or some of the books you have out there, they want to read them, check them out. I hear you even got a new one coming out pretty soon that's got a Eastwood vibe to it. Where can people follow you on social media, Sam?
You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at the handle right there at @somebody_NGC on X and Instagram. You can also find my podcast, The Whitfield Report, on Rumble Video and Spotify. And yeah, you can also find my books on Amazon if you just type in my name, Sam Whitfield. And yes, I do have a new book coming out, Night of the Vigil Ante. That's coming out on March 25th. Kind of like a modern day pulp style Western. Modern day pulp is kind of my genre as a whole. That's how I connected with Ryan and Henry in the men's adventure fiction Discord. And there's even a larger kind of community of modern day pulp writers outside that too. So Ryan, I'm want to thank you for having me on here, and yeah, we'll have you on the Whitfield Report soon. And Henry, I'd love to have you on as well.
Oh yeah. You tell me when. I'd love to.
Yeah.
I will. I'll send you the calendar link so we can get you booked. So
Very well. There you go. Questions have been answered. Thank you, Sam, for being here. Good to see you. Glad to have you here. Going to talk to you here again momentarily. Henry, if someone wants to know more about you or check out some of your books, where can they follow you?
I just realized I had all these Lynn Levinson books up here to show you the covers, and I don't have any of my own ready. But anyway, so on all my social media, you can find me at Machine Trooper. So Machine Trooper at Twitter, Machine Trooper at Gab, Machine Trooper at Substack. And Substack is probably the best place to go because I share some excerpts. Excuse me. I have two channels there. I have Iron Age Unfolding, which is where I do more of the nonfiction stuff, articles, and Henry Sneak Peeks, which is where I show excerpts and sometimes artwork, because right now, I'm working on a graphic novel, which I hope to crowdfund later this year. I've never crowdfunded before, but I think I'm finally going to do it. Hopefully this fall, I'm going to be crowdfunding it, and you're going to be able to, if you go to my Substack, there's already some artwork there that you can see. And I'll be publishing more and more of that. In fact, sharing panels from the comic, the graphic novel, as I go. The closer I get, the more I have, so that I can. I plan to start sharing that like weekly, but I want to have enough colored and lettered so that I can start sharing it consistently. And anyway, so what was it? Oh, on Amazon, you can find all my fiction on Amazon. If you go to the Kindle store and type virtual pulp, put it in quotes, and you have a better chance of getting mostly my books instead of the ads and the paid stuff that pops up in my feed. So you can get all of it there. Of course, my books are also available on every other online platform. My ebooks, I mean, the paperbacks are mostly available on Amazon. They are available on Amazon and whatever Amazon affiliates, bookstores. You can actually probably go to a physical bookstore and ask them to order it because they all have ISBNs. And then, my most recent series is called the Paradox series. There's 6 books in it. As an ebook, it's available as a compendium. They're all put together, or a box set is what they call it, which would be, it's a monster. It's 1,640 pages, which is one reason why I broke it into a series. And it's men's adventure, time travel, conspiracy thriller, sports adventure, all rolled into one. It's a lot of fun. It's especially written for, in my generation, is we mostly grew up fatherless, and it's got a lot of it. It's a book that I would love to give a 13-year-old me if I could do what happens in the book and go back in time. And a lot of people, unfortunately, it hasn't got many reviews. I guess that's a thing now. It's like pulling teeth trying to get reviews. But the people that were kind enough to read it and comment on it, the men who've read it, most of them have expressed that, they wish that they'd had something like this when they were young, so they wouldn't make the same mistakes that I made and several other people made. Because it's about a character who, the time traveler he meets becomes a surrogate father for him, and teaches him the stuff that his biological father never bothered to teach him, and helps him avoid making a lot of mistakes, helps him reach his potential. And that would have definitely appealed to me, the younger me, and I think it would appeal to a lot of young men and even older men if they would give it a chance. Anyway, that's the Paradox series. All the books in all the novels in the series have fate at the end of them. So it starts with escaping fate, goes to rebooting fate, defying fate, and so on.
Fabulous stuff. Thank you, good sir, for being with us. Do greatly appreciate it, both to Henry and Sam. Appreciate you guys being here. My name is Ryan of Anaco Channel. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram personally at RyanRPM5. Check us out across all forms of social media, simply at And I Quote channel. That's where you can check out our YouTube channel, past feeds, past videos, all that good stuff. And hey, yeah, you're late to the party here, Grace. You said, hey, I made it. Yeah, you made it at the tail end of this episode, Grayson, but we love you, brother. Hope everything's well in your neck of the woods. Feel free to go back and watch the replay, as one might say. But check out all our great content. We have a lot of great things coming your way very soon. We're on the road to 5,000 subscribers. Once we do, we'll throw a great big live stream celebration that will include special giveaways that you, the incredible viewer / subscriber, is going to be eligible to win. All that great stuff. We also got, we got merch, we got hoodies, we got shirts, we got coffee mugs, we got stickers you can add to your water bottles, all kinds of good things there. Link is in my link tree. It's also in our social media bios on our pages, all that good stuff. So once again, thank you so much for joining us for this episode of the Meaning of Fandom. Do not forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, do all that stuff. And remember, life is better when celebrating your favorite fandoms and supporting other indie creators out there. Take a look.
In an enemy like me, I used the backdrop of World War II to show the angst experienced by Jacob, his wife, and his 4-year-old son as he leaves for and fights in a war he did not create. I explore the concepts of xenophobia, intrafamily dynamics, and the recognition that war is not won and lost by nations, but by ordinary men and women and the families who support them. Buy your copy today on Amazon.
In the summer of 1953, private investigator Will Lucky Marks was working as the in-house private eye for Arcane Pacific Pictures. Trapped inside the studio with the killer, Lucky must find the killer before time runs out. Lot 28. Own it today. Available iTunes and Amazon.com.
You want answers?
I think I'm entitled.
You want answers?
I want the truth!
You can't handle the truth.
Tell us about yourself. Who are you?
Tell me!
It is a gift. A privilege.
Behold. My stuff.
Now you want to get nuts? Come on! Let's get nuts.
I like it.
I know, it's great, right?
Another!